The UFC is in a bit of a story state right now. We've had no update on Jones vs Aspinall. The lightweight title picture is a mess and we're getting undeserved title shots left and right. But top of the list is absolutely the lack of a main event for UFC 317. So I'm going to step in and fix that by giving them the perfect fights to put on the biggest card of the year at International Fight Week. Okay, so let's kick it off with the first fight on the main card. It's one that we all want to see. We all know this is the fight they need to make, but the UFC is utterly useless and they just don't seem to want to do their jobs and make people fight. We're going to have Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. Why is this not booked yet? We know this is the fight that they should be doing. There's not really another matchup for Buckley at welterweight unless you want to do him against like Brady, but that kind of feels like Brady's fighting backwards after he utterly dominated Edwards. Not surprising, Edwards is kind of a bum, and I've been saying that for a year, but what do you do with Buckley if you don't do this? He doesn't deserve. I guess maybe you do him against the winner of Gary Prates, but no, it doesn't seem like a very good matchup, does it? Not that it wouldn't be a great fight. On the other hand of it, what do you do with Usman? Who do you put him against? He's wanting, I want to fight for a title, man. Shut up! You're not fighting for a title. You haven't fought in 2 years. Your last fight was a loss to Khamzat Chimaev. Before that, you have 2 losses to Leon Edwards. Admittedly, one of them was a complete fluke. Your last win was against Colby Covington. If you don't do him against Buckley, will you do him against Shavkat? Do you do him against Brady? He's not going to take that fight. He doesn't want to take the Buckley fight. The only fight he wants is a title shot. You're not going to win that. For one, you're going to get utterly destroyed. You would get destroyed by Buckley. Let's be real. Like, yeah, you're going to get destroyed by anyone in the rankings you face, pretty much. I could be wrong. Usman could come back and he could look absolutely incredible, like he could go on a title run. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm not. Usman is going to get destroyed by anyone in the rankings, but the UFC is content to just let him sit there yapping on his podcasts and just sit in the rankings. And this is the issue I have with the rankings. Why don't you just, like, people don't move in the rankings for not fighting. They just let him sit at, what's he at, number 3 right now? And they just let him sit there doing nothing, not having a fight. Get this Malteser off of his couch, get him off of his podcast, and force him to get in the octagon. UFC, you have the power to force him to get off of the... Just say, if you're not going to fight, then retire. If you're not going to fight, we're going to boot you out the rankings until you get back in the cage. If you don't fight, we're stripping you of your contact. It's not like Usman is some massive pay-per-view draw. Like, yeah, he's going to get people in there, but it's not like people really care about Usman in 2025. No one cares. Either get him off his podcast, get him off his couch, and let Buckley just go to town on him, kill him, or just get rid of his contract. I'm sick of this stalling, and it's such an issue in the UFC right now. They let people sit on their rankings, do absolutely nothing with it, and hold up a division by clogging up the number 3 ranking spot. The rankings are utterly useless. We'll talk about that when we get to one of the later fights, but oh my god, the UFC just needs to sort this out. And when Buckley wins this, it would be a win worthy of getting a title shot, but because of how stacked the welterweight division is right now, I'm not sure he quite gets it. I think you probably do him against a Shavkat or a Brady. Maybe you do those guys against each other, because really, Shavkat does deserve his title shot, but then Brady's win against Edwards also kind of earns him a title shot, so I think you could do them against each other while Bilal's going to be out or JDM's going to be out. I think you can do those guys against each other, and then maybe do Buckley against... Could do him against the winner of Prates Gary, even if he wins, but I don't know. I think you kind of want him fighting up a bit, so you could give him a title shot without having to fight anyone, or you could give him like the loser of Shavkat Brady, or if they just give Shavkat a title shot straight off, you do Buckley Brady. That's the fight you do. And if Usman wins this somehow by some miracle, you know they'll give him an immediate title shot, which I don't despise, because like you can make an argument for it, but like it's the issue I have. Usman is talking like he's gonna get a title shot. He's sitting here going, yeah, I want a title shot. Look how many people deserve a title shot in the welterweight division. You haven't fought in 2 years. You do not deserve the title shot over all these actually skilled, actually up-and-coming fighters in the welterweight division. Shut up, you Malteser. Get in the octagon. Man, this guy pisses me off so much. Just get off your podcast. Oh, God. Let's move on to the next fight. Okay, so the next fight we've got on this card, God, man, talking about Kamaru Usman just makes me angry. That's really annoyed me. Anyway, the next fight we've got on this card is a middleweight division bout between Nasruddin Imavov and Caio Borralho. I know what everyone's going to be saying, they're doing Borralho Chimaev for an interim title, which, you know, I don't know what the UFC's doing. Time of recording, they haven't announced this. Like, officially, it's leaked. But why? Why would you do an interim title right now? Dricus is injured, apparently, until we hear that Dricus's injuries are like incredibly severe and he's going to be out for like a year. There's no need for an interim title. If it's just an average injury, he's not going to be out for that long. All doing an interim title does, is just push back the matchup we actually want to see. The matchup that needs to happen, which is Dricus Hamzat. It should have been the matchup before Strickland. You have to do Hamzat DDP now. There's no other fight you can do. And all this does is just forestall it. It just pushes it back because we have to watch Hamzat fight Borralho. To be fair, it's looking like Hamzat is going to be fighting. He's seeming like he's going to be a bit more active now, but we don't know. Hamzat might go back to all his old ways and just not fight for another year, and we have to wait until like October 2026. Yeah, that's what'll happen. I mean, it won't be October, it'll be like March, let's be real, but we have to wait until March 2026 to see Hamzat DDP and see who wins that. And it's such an interesting fight because DDP, he has like the power of Bugs Bunny on his side. He can like flying armbar, not even flying armbar, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Flying armbar is actually a real thing. No, flying anvil. Dricus flying anvils his way to, like, all these comments on these Dricus jumping over Hamzat's takedown. Like, they're so funny. Hamzat by drawing a door on the on the cage and Hamzat runs into it. We want to see this fight because Hamzat, he dominated Robert Whittaker. I know it's because Whittaker could have had a broken jaw, but he was still dominating him on the ground before that happened. This is an interesting fight because Hamzat seems unbeatable, but Dricus just has this like ungodly Looney Tunes plot armor that he might just like strength max his way to like a 50-45 decision or something, or like he'll like ankle pick Hamzat by accident in the 4th round and get a rear naked choke or something. He's so, like, Dricus looks so, but this is the fight we want to see. We want to see Dricus versus Hamzat. I'm not saying Hamzat versus Borralho isn't an incredible matchup. I would be incredibly excited to see how that fight plays out, because it's the same thing as with Dricus. Borralho has the fighting nerd's plot armor. He is admittedly like the least kind of plot armored up of them. He's kind of the most basic, bland of them, least hype. But Borralho has that fighting nerd's plot armor, and when I'm looking at Prates Gary this weekend, I'm kind of looking at it going, I'm not sure the fighting nerd's undefeated streak ends right now. And I'll be looking at that if it goes into Borralho or Hamzat. I'll be going, people forget, man, the fighting nerds are undefeated. And just looking at it like, does Borralho lose here? But I pick Hamzat to utterly destroy him. I think Hamzat is just, I think the only person who actually could beat Hamzat is just DDP by plot armoring his way to a victory. And I'm not sure Borralho's plot armor is quite that strong. So I think Hamzat runs through Borralho. But it's interesting because Borralho is really, really good. He's really well-rounded. So I would like to see the fight, but I'd like to see it after Hamzat Dricus. And on top of that, let's just talk about it. Borralho's been moving for the interim title on, can I just mention, Hamzat saying, this guy biggest bullshit. For Dricus being injured? Can we just talk about that? From Hamzat? Ridiculous. But yeah, let's talk about Borralho moving for the title shot. Imavov is coming off a knockout victory over Israel Adesanya. Top 3 middleweights all time. I think Dricus is honestly above him now, but that's arguable. And Imavov knocked him out. And let's not say, oh, Izzy was washed, because yeah, he definitely wasn't in his prime. But Izzy did look really good. He just got clipped. Izzy looked really, really good in that fight. Let's not sugarcoat it. No, Izzy looked really good. And Imavov knocked him out in, what was it, the 2nd round? So how is Borralho above Imavov? And I'm completely blanking on who Borralho's last win was against right now. I don't know what I'm doing in my brain right now. I cannot bring it up to mind. I know for a fact, when I was making these matchups, Imavov deserves a title shot over Borralho. Imavov is the number 2 contender behind Hamzat. So if you're going to do an interim title, you should do Imavov versus Hamzat, not Borralho versus Hamzat. Basically, all this is, this talk of an interim title, is just the UFC scrambling, because people are talking like, oh, Dricus is out, International Fight Week's going to be ruined, 317 is scrambling. It's people talking like Dricus versus Hamzat should have been the title fight we were getting in the first place. It's International Fight Week. We should be getting the biggest fights. I'm crashing out so much making this video because the UFC is just so utterly useless. It's International Fight Week. We should either be getting John Jones versus Tom Aspinall or Islam Makhachev versus Ilia Topuria for the lightweight title. The only other fight for Islam Makhachev is Arman. One of those three fights should be the main event, but the UFC is just utterly useless. They can't make these main events, and they've got this thing now of going, they both want to fight each other. Just make them fight! They work for you! They're on contract. Make the fights that people actually want to see. We don't want to see Makhachev versus Gaethje because they both want to fight each other. Nobody wants that fight. And I love Islam. I think Islam is a great fighter. He's one of my favourite fighters right now. He's so entertaining. I don't want to see him pad his record with an easy fight against Justin Gaethje, who's coming off a win against Rafael Fiziev. I want to see him go up against Ilia or Arman, guys who are actually could give him a challenge. Oh, it's so annoying. But that's the reason we're talking about an interim title, because DDP's out. So our title fight between Khamzat and DDP has been derailed. They're just scrambling to put on a title fight for 317 because they don't have anything else. And that, you know, they don't have anything else because they can't just force these guys to fight because they're so soft. They can't. Oh. So they're so desperate to put on a title fight in the main event that they're like, oh, well, I guess we'll have to do Khamzat versus Baralho. That's a badass fight. And yeah, it's a badass fight, Dana. But shut up. We don't want to see an interim title. We want to see Khamzat DDP. And I want to see this fight. I want to see Khamzat Baralho. But I want to see Khamzat DDP more. That's the fight we need. And all this does is just forestall the DDP matchup for a fight we know Khamzat is going to win because Khamzat is just insane. What you can do instead is put on Imavov versus Baralho in a #1 contender fight. This is such a good matchup. And this is the thing. The UFC is just sacrificing so many like incredible matchups right now that we could be having. Let me talk about Aldo versus Cejudo. How have you not made that? How do you not make Aldo versus Cejudo for a retirement fight for both guys? Best takedown defense in UFC history versus one of the best wrestlers we've ever seen. Both top 20 all-time fighters. Make Aldo Cejudo. It's not that hard. Oh, what's that? Jose Aldo? Yeah, best we can do is Ayman Zahabi. Good luck to the head. What are you doing? Oh my god, I'm crashing out so much. This is a free fight. This is so obvious. I know, apparently it was booked, so you've got to give the UFC that apparently this was booked for International Fight Week, and now they're bringing one of these guys up to fight Khamzat for an interim belt, which I've discussed why it's stupid, but Imavov should be ahead of Baralho in the queue. Let's settle who is going to fight for the title after Khamzat DDP, which is the fight we want. And yeah, I'm going to say I think Baralho is better than Imavov, but right now Imavov is more deserving of a title shot. But Baralho probably wins this fight. Fighting Nerds Plot Armor will continue with this fight. I am picking Baralho to win. But the UFC was so close to just making this fight. They had it booked. They had this fight booked. Oh my god, it makes me so angry. So fourth fight on the card, second fight at the main event. Let's do this. Imavov versus Baralho, #1 contender fight. This is such a good card already. Buckley, Usman, Imavov, Baralho. This is the card we should be getting for International Fight Week. Not some, Pantoja main event, Weili co-main. And no hate to those guys. I love Pantoja, I love Weili. But and then we'll get like, oh, what's that kid? Yeah, Tim Elliott on the main event. Like, no! That's not what we're doing for International Fight Week. Makes no sense. Why can't the UFC just make good cards? And it's because, what with these guys, they don't want to fight each other. Islam Makhachev, he wants to fight Justin Gaethje, so we're going to do those guys, yeah? Justin Gaethje, he's earned a title shot, man. Legend of the sport, former interim champion, former BMF. He's earned a title. I'm not even trying to do a Dana impression right now. I'm just chatting out my ass. Oh, just make the good fights. Just force people to fight each other. Jesus Christ, right. I'm seriously going to try and stop crashing out now, because like the next fight I've got nothing to crash out about really. I'm sure I'll find a way, but let's get on to the next fight. Okay, so what are we doing for the feature fight? We need 2 guys who are going to show up. I can't do you 2 guys who are going to show up, but I've got you 1 guy who's going to show up. Yuri Prochazka versus Carlos Olberg. This is the fight to make. Olberg's out here chatting, oh yeah man, I want a title shot. Shut up! You arguably robbed, and I think Jan won that fight. I scored it for Jan. Even if you think Olberg won that fight, you beat 42-year-old Jan Blachowicz by a very, very close decision. A boring, point-fighting, jabby decision where you were doing absolutely nothing. But it's like, he's not even a prospect anymore. Nobody actually wants to see him win his next fight. And nobody thinks he should fight for the belt off a win over Jan. Yeah, I know Jan's good, but getting a win over a 42-year-old Jan doesn't put you ahead of Yuri Prochazka, who just just knocked out Jamal Hill. And let's talk about the Jamal Hill fight. Yuri Prochazka looked arguably better than we've ever seen him. Yuri Prochazka looked really good. He was still having that same style, but his defense was just so much better than we've seen it before. Yuri looked really good against Hill. And I know Hill is like a complete bum, and I've been saying that since 300. I've been saying, yeah, Pereira knocks this bum out. Like, I don't think Hill's that good. I think when they eventually get round to Roundtree Hill, finally, Roundtree's going to knock him out. But still, Yuri looked really good in that fight. And I'd argue that's still a better win than Yan. So Yuri should be ahead of the queue. And let's say for a second, Yuri, in the last 10 years, in the last decade, has only lost to Alex Pereira, who is a top 3 most skilled striker we've ever seen. Pereira is that good, and I know that completely went out the window against Ankalaev, probably because he was scared of the takedowns or whatever. That was probably why Pereira looked so bad against Ankalaev. Still, the Pereira that fought Yuri in their second fight, that's a dangerous fighter. That is not someone Olberg is beating by jabbing like that. Olberg is getting head kicked and flattened into the canvas by that version of Pereira. So you want to decide who gets the title shot after they do the Pereira Ankalaev rematch, because that's just the obvious fight to make. I'm not going to go into that. For the number 1 contender fight, you do Carlos Olberg versus Yuri Prochazka, and you figure out who is the number 1 contender, rather than giving one of these guys wait out for a title shot, and then having the other guy fight down the rankings. Like, no, just make them fight each other. On International Fight Week, Yuri will be ready. Olberg will probably say he doesn't want to take it, because he's a bit of a bitch, but he should be ready. Like, and to be fair, Olberg isn't inactive either. It will be 3-month turnaround, which is absolutely fine. We're 2 months out. He could get in camp right now and have a 2-month camp. Let's just do this fight. It's obvious. And it'll be banger. I mean, Olberg will try and make it boring because he's a boring fighter. But Yuri, never boring fight with Yuri. Yuri bring the party. Man, I love Yuri. You can look at the channel profile picture and see what I think about this fight. See how I think this fight is going to end. That's all I'm saying. So let's move on to the co-main event. So, the co-main event is going to be a lightweight division bout. Now, lightweight is in a bit of a pickle right now because people don't want to fight each other. It's just the fighters wanting title shots that they don't deserve. But it seems like that's going to be getting better because it's being rumoured that all these guys have fights booked. Poirier has a fight booked. It's seeming like that's going to be against Max Holloway, which I don't hate. I think that's a decent fight. I would have really liked to see Holloway Oliveira, but I don't mind Holloway Poirier. That's going to be a banger. Holloway might be able to get it done this time. But essentially, it's seeming like these guys are finally getting fights booked. So what lightweight fight are we making here? Which 2 lightweights am I saying should clash head to head in the co-main event of International Fight Week for a banger fight that's going to be competitive, probably. Actually, there's a clear winner for this. But there's going to be a good fight. Who am I picking? First off, we've got Arman Sarukian. Yes, I'm not giving Arman a title shot. I'm going with Dana. I'm saying, you didn't fight. You pulled out on a day's notice. Not cool, brother. You're not getting a title shot. I'm going with Dana. I'm being nice to Dana here. I'm agreeing with Dana as much as I would like to see Ilya take on a contender and Arman fight Islam for the belt. That would be an ideal situation, just because then Islam beats Arman. Then if he beats Ilya, he's the GOAT of the sport. I don't have an agenda. I'm not peddling an agenda against any particular Roy cheat wife beaters. I don't have an agenda, okay? I'm not biased. But who's Arman taking on here? Arman is probably not fighting Islam. Maybe he is, but not in this world. Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is coming off a loss. See, this is... My brain is not working. Justin Gaethje is not coming off a loss. I mean, he did lose to Max Holloway 2 fights ago, who Ilya knocked out, which we'll get into. But he's coming off a win over Fiziev. Banger fight. He decisioned Fiziev. Fiziev looked good in that fight, but I think Fiziev is ranked 11 right now. He's around there. I'm not sure if he's top 10. But Gaethje's trying to say, oh yeah, I beat like the number 11 ranked guy. Give me a title shot. Like, yeah, I know this is probably Gaethje's last chance for a title shot. I've got nothing against Gaethje. I love Gaethje, but you're not getting a title shot over Rafael Fiziev, and I think most people agree with me on this. This is the general consensus that I've seen, that beating Rafael Fiziev is not going to get you a fight against Islam Makhachev. If you take Fiziev to a decision, Makhachev will kill you. And I know Islam's crew and Khabib just want it because it's an easy fight and it's a free title defense, but why are you looking at this and going, oh, it's a free title defense? I and most other UFC fans are looking at this. We're going, this is a pointless title defense, and this does absolutely nothing for your legacy, Islam. When and you could probably beat Ilya or Arman. I'd pick him to beat either of those guys, who are incredible wins for his legacy. And he's talking about wanting Justin Gaethje off a win over Fiziev, and I know Gaethje has a very good resume. The old guard, he's been around for ages, done a lot in the sport, but he's not the top contender right now. Arman is the top, and I know it's because Islam wants to fight someone he's never fought, and he's already beaten Arman, but that was like years ago at this point. It doesn't matter. Arman is so much better. Islam is so much better. It's so stupid. It's so misguided, and the UFC will probably do it. I really hope they're not that out of touch. People are complaining about O'Malley, Merab. Like, at least their first fight was close, because otherwise you do Jan O'Malley, which I think they should have done, but what you do, Jan versus Merab? Yeah, Jan deserves it more than O'Malley, but Merab utterly dominated Jan. I don't agree with the O'Malley Merab matchup, but it's a million times better than Gaethje Makhachev. Like, how is this even a topic we're talking about? The prospect of Gaethje versus Makhachev. It just makes no sense. But the UFC is so utterly out of touch, and their matchmaking is so garbage, we're probably gonna get it. We're in a world where they did Aldo against Ayman Zahabi. That's the world we're living in. We're going to get Gaethje Makhachev, I swear to God. But I'm holding out hope. I'm holding out hope that we get a good matchup, and while that's happening, let's do Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje. We'll make Arman win back his title shot, which, let's be real, he's going to do here. This is a pretty easy fight for Arman. Let's make Gaethje actually earn it. If Gaethje can go out there and beat Arman Tsarukyan, yeah, you've earned your title shot, bud. Undeniably, Arman is the #1 contender in the division. If you go out there and beat him as a massive underdog, Gaethje would be a massive underdog for this fight, you get your title shot, and that is a massive win for your legacy. So, and then no one is complaining about Gaethje Makhachev, are they? But right now, yeah, it's just ridiculous. I personally am kind of like, just for the sake of the division, I think you should maybe just do Arman versus Islam, and then have Ilya fight an Oliveira. But I get where the UFC is coming from, wanting to punish Arman for pulling out on a day's notice. And this is a good fight to make with the main event I've got, which is Islam Makhachev versus Ilya Topuria. This is the biggest fight you can make in the sport. Like, maybe other than John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, because of how massive that build-up is going to be, if it happens, which 50-50, John Jones does not want to fight him. But yeah, this is a, you kind of have to make this. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I was saying earlier about the UFC missing out on Imavov Barajo so they can do an unneeded interim title. This is the progenitor of fights that you don't want to miss out on. It's the two most skilled guys in the UFC right now. Pound for pound #1, and who should be the pound for pound #2. I don't want to hear anything about John Jones for beating old man Stipe and not fighting for 3 years. Before that, beating Cyril Gane, who didn't want to be in there, and is stylistically such an easy matchup for him. Ilya Topuria is the rightful pound for pound #2. So it's a pound for pound #2, pound for pound #1 clash. The two most skilled guys in the UFC right now. I would argue these are probably two of the top 3 guys we've ever seen in the UFC. This is the only acceptable fight to make other than Arman Tsarukyan. Any fight for Islam Makhachev other than Ilya Topuria or Arman Tsarukyan is not acceptable. Let's not, like, let Dana White gaslight us into thinking that we want to see Makhachev Oliveira too. Oliveira has not earned a title shot. Paddy Pimblett is more deserving of a title shot than Oliveira right now. Just looking at their last wins, and we're talking about giving Oliveira a title shot. Oliveira is talking about, yeah, man, I want a title shot. It's just annoying me because I like Oliveira, but then he goes out and says stuff like this. Like, oh yeah, I deserve a title shot for beating Michael Chandler, who's just been beaten by Paddy Pimblett. Like, no, if anything, Oliveira, you and Paddy should be fighting. If we're doing Poirier versus Holloway, do Oliveira versus Pimblett. That's a good matchup. That's some good matchmaking. Not Oliveira versus Makhachev. Not Pimblett versus Makhachev. Not Gaethje versus Makhachev. To be fair, knowing the UFC's matchmaking, we'll probably get Dan Hooker versus Makhachev before we get Topuria versus... It's just ridiculous. It's Arman Tsarukyan or it's Ilya Topuria. I would give Max Holloway a title shot. I think Max Holloway is third in the queue. I think Max Holloway Holloway deserves a title shot over Oliveira and over Gaethje and over Pimblett. I think you do Holloway a title shot before any of those guys. They're talking about giving Gaethje a title shot. He beat Fiziev. That is like an irrelevant ranking because it was so far below his, and I know he was meant to fight Dan Hooker, which would have done a lot more for him. But it's a guy who is ranked so far below him, and the last time he fought like a guy who is actually, you know, up there, Max Holloway's ranking in lightweight is stupid. But Gaethje lost to him, and you have a loss against a guy who is now at lightweight, who is not getting a title shot, and the only thing you've done since then is beat number 11 ranked Fiziev, and we're talking about giving you a title shot. It makes no sense, and most people agree with me on this. Like, the majority of people on MMA YouTube and everything like that are saying, yeah, Gaethje does not deserve a title shot. It's only Dana White and the UFC and Gaethje and Makhachev who are saying, yeah, you know, this is a pretty good fight. Nobody wants it. I would take Max Holloway versus Islam Makhachev before I take Gaethje Makhachev, because Max Holloway beat them and Gaethje has done nothing since. You talk about, yeah, Max Holloway deserves it more. Max Holloway beating Gaethje a year ago is arguably better than Oliveira beating Chandler 6 months ago. I think Max Holloway currently has more argument for a title shot than anyone currently ranked at lightweight besides Arman, who they don't want to give a title shot to. If you're not doing Arman because he pulled out on a day's notice, like, you do Ilya. You just give Ilya the title shot. If you want to make Ilya fight a contender and you don't want to let Arman get his title shot back, you're in a real pickle, because those are the two guys who deserve it. But if you're not doing either of them, Max Holloway should be next in line, even though he's just been knocked out by Ilia Topuria. The lightweight division is an absolute shambles, and the only way you can fix it is by just making these fights. Just go, Oliveira, you're fighting Pimblett, shut up and sign the contract. Just tell these guys you're not getting a title shot. Just make them fight. And this is the issue I have with the UFC. They're not willing to have the backbone and just say, you're fighting these guys. Makhachev has said, yeah, anyone, if you're at 155, I will fight you. I guarantee you he will fight Ilia Topuria. So the UFC needs to just shut up about Justin Gaethje, shut up about Oliveira, shut up about Paddy Pimblett, and give Arman Tsarukyan or Ilia Topuria a contract for Islam Makhachev, and get them on the main event for International Fight Week. And this is why I'm saying we don't need an interim title for International Fight Week. We don't need it, because if the UFC would just stop being so utterly useless, they could just make a lightweight title fight. Justin Gaethje versus Islam Makhachev. The thought of it just disgusts me, that you have Ilia Topuria, you have Arman Tsarukyan, who, yes, I get aren't perfect, but your only other options aren't options. Gaethje, Pimblett, Oliveira, Holloway, they're not options to be fighting for the title. So this is my card for International Fight Week. I'm sorry it's gone on so long making this card. I have had a lot to rant about. I have crashed out a lot in this video. Let's recap the card. Headlining, Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev. The biggest fight you could make in the sport right now. Pound for pound number 1, pound for pound number 2. Incredible main event. This is an International Fight Week main event. It literally is Conor versus Khabib 2. It's a generational fight. It's a once in a lifetime fight that we're probably going to miss out on. If you don't make it Islam's next fight, he might move up to 170 and we never see this fight. The co-main event, we've got a number 1 contender fight for the lightweight division to decide who the winner of Islam Ilia will face next. Arman Tsarukyan versus Justin Gaethje. Arman's wrestling versus Justin's coke-headed striking. I know Gaethje isn't on coke. He looks like it and he fights like it. And then the feature fight, Jiri Prochazka versus Carlos Ulberg. Another number 1 contender fight to see who takes on the winner of Pereira Ankalaev 2. This is a good fight. Jiri will make this a banger. Jiri only makes bangers. Ain't no party like a Jiri party, man. Jiri Prochazka is going to behead Carlos Ulberg. He's going to behead Magomed Ankalaev after he wins. And he's going to go over to the waterfall in the mountains and just let out a war cry. My channel profile picture, that's not just some image I cooked up. That's a premonition. That's a vision of the future. That is something that happens in this timeline. Let's go for that. that. The fourth fight from the top, second fight on the main card, Imavov versus Braujo in another number one contender fight. This is a banger. This is a fight that we should be seeing. This is the type of matchmaking the UFC can so easily be doing, but they just don't, because they want to make O'Malley Marav 2 next instead. They want to make Makhachev Gaethje. This is good matchmaking. Imavov Braujo for a number one contender fight. We've got 3 number one contender fights, potentially 4 if you give the winner of Buckley Usman a title shot. And this is a good fight. This is a fight that we all know is the one that should be made next. Everyone's talking, oh, what do you do with Buckley? What do you do with Usman? Yeah, you do Buckley Usman. That's the fight you do. Nobody's talking really about Buckley Brady, about Usman Bilal. Nobody's really talking about that. Everyone agrees that it should be Usman Buckley. But Usman, the Malteser, just wants to sit on his podcast and melt in the sun. Like, there's no way for me to not make that sound racist. Like, he looks like a Malteser, though. I'm genuinely not... It's not racially... I just don't like Usman. Usman just really annoys me. And I want Buckley to utterly destroy him. I just don't like Usman. And he happens to look like a Malteser. There's no agenda behind it. I just don't like him. For this main card, we have 3, potentially 4 number one contender fights. We have the biggest fight the UFC could make right now. Conor versus Khabib 2, pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2, where Islam Makhachev can earn a top 3 all-time spot if you don't think he has already, and Ilia Topuria gets himself into the top 10 if he beats Makhachev. I don't want to hear it. He beat Volk, Holloway, and if he wins this, he would have beaten Makhachev. That's 3 top 10 all-time fighters. Probably all by knockout, back to back to back. That is the best string of wins you could possibly get in UFC history. Whoever wins this fight becomes the GOAT of the sport, basically, is what I'm getting at. One of these guys will become the GOAT of the sport within the next 2 years. That is my hotshot prediction, and I don't think it's that much of a wild one. I think that is basically a guarantee. So you put them against each other. This is the fight week card we should get. You want to hire me, UFC, to do your matchmaking for you? I'm not just saying this about me. I'm saying that, like, anyone on MMA YouTube, like Bedtime, Lucas Tracy, MMA Guru's matchmaking is really good. Hoppero, like, any of those guys would do a better job than you're doing in the UFC right now, because they're actually in touch with what the fans want and understand that nobody would be accepting of Makhachev Gaethje. But the note I'll end it on is that Yuri Prochazka is going to behead Carlos Solberg at International Fight Week 2025. That is the fight we're going to see. That is the fight everyone wants to see. That is the fight we need to see. That is the outcome we need to see. And Ankalaev had better start saying his prayers, because Yuri Prochazka is coming.
I'm coming!